All right, we're going to get up and going here. I'd like to welcome everybody to our webinar. On today is Friday. What is it? August 5th, I think it is. And we're excited for the topic today. The topic today is business insurance necessities. And so next week's webinar is characteristics of an effective leader. Will be a good one as well. I've already got some emails this morning of some people that weren't able to make it on here and wanted to make sure we recorded it. So that we are doing, and we'll be putting it in the archive of other of all our other webinars. So today we're excited to have Marvin Jackman with us. I've been in various marketing groups and known Marvin for quite a while, and he has quite a bit of experience in the insurance. And he was the first person that came to mind when I thought of that we needed to do something on insurance needs. So I'm going to turn the screen. The screen's already over to him, and I'm going to let Marvin take it away. If you have questions, I encourage each of you to put the questions in the chat box, and we will answer those questions at the very end if you have them. And then hopefully Marvin at the end of his presentation has his contact information so that he can tell us how to contact him directly. So with that, Marvin, the floor is now yours.
Well, thank you, Brian. Welcome, everyone. Once again, this is Marvin Jackman with Hub International Insurance. I'm in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and I've been doing insurance for about 20 years. And the best thing about today is I'm not going to try to sell you anything. We're just going to talk about insurance basics and what you need to protect your business, and just kind of give you a base of knowledge so you can get everything done properly and taken care of. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. The outline for the day is we're going to talk about the insurance basics. We're going to talk about commercial general liability. This is the commercial general liability is going to protect you from third-party claims and protect you from people coming after your assets. We're going to talk a little bit about commercial property coverage. This is protecting your assets and getting protection for that. Commercial auto, we're going to just breeze over commercial auto a little bit. An umbrella, excess policies, talk briefly about package policies. All these will be kind of high level. We're not going to dive into them real deep, but you can ask any questions that you have. We're going to talk briefly about workers' compensation and then touch on professional and both cyber liability. Unfortunately, cyber liability is becoming a bigger issue as we go electronic with almost everything we have. We're seeing more and more clients get some claims against them based on hackers and things like that getting personal information. So before we get started, everybody has a disclaimer. Now, I have one as well. Just keep in mind that these are all examples. Insurance is constantly changing, and every company out there has their own forms and their own coverages, and some of them are very standard. Some can get a little bit more flexible with what they'll do. So I would strongly encourage you to talk to your agent and on your own personal situations. So what do you want to know? Is there, if you have specific questions, concerns, comments, please put them in the chat box and Brian will get those to me and I will address those as I can. I don't want to just sit here and go through a PowerPoint presentation. I would rather just have interaction and communication and go through things that you want to know, because that's really why we're doing this. So anyway, let's go in. What is insurance and what is the purpose of insurance? The purpose of insurance, or risk management, you'll hear people call it, is indemnification. It is to get you back to where you were the day before the claim, the day before the loss. It's not supposed to make you better. It's not supposed to provide you with more. It just gets you back to where before the event happened that caused the issue. And it could be a property claim, an auto claim, it can be whatever case might be. We really want to get you back to where you were before the claim happened. So And there's, there are some benefits of insurance. I've had a handful of clients that might argue with me about that, but the majority of the time, some of my clients that have had claims, they understand the benefits of insurance, and you can help manage the cash flow uncertainties of life with property claims and being able to keep your income coming in while you're rebuilding your structures, taking care of your property, that sort of things. A lot of times it'll help you meet legal requirements. I know that I work with clients daily needing specific contract issues within their insurance and also meeting certain liability limits. A lot of times contractors out there are unable, you won't get paid unless your information has been sent to your general contractor and it has the right endorsements and it has the right coverages. And so it helps you meet those requirements. It promotes risk control. Ideally, you don't want to have claims, and insurance companies, will pay them, but they would like to keep them as minimal as possible too, because that keeps everybody's costs low. And so we really want it to be there to protect you when the big things happen. And so the insurance companies will come out and help you do that, and it's a good thing to have them come out and take a look, because it's a separate, another set of eyes that can look through and maybe see things that you don't see, and they can help you and get you through those situations. So it's efficient use of resources. Sometimes it can provide support for insured's credit. It may be required for certain things, and then also it reduces social burdens. Catastrophe losses, the fires that we're experiencing, hurricanes, earthquakes, certain things like that. So that's just kind of why and the what's of insurance and why it's here. But let's jump right into commercial general liability. Commercial general liability, I feel, is probably one of the most important coverages, because it protects you when you have to go to a court of law. It's going to pay for your attorney, and it's gonna be there to defend you when someone is suing you, and that's a scary thing. And so there are aspects of legal liability, and it basically boils down to civil law versus criminal law. Civil law is a remedy for a breach of duty owed to others. So it's negligence. It's you owe a duty to someone and you broke that duty. And so this will come in versus civil law and protect you, whereas criminal law is a different situation and not normally insurable. So there are torts. Those are the wrongful acts of omission other than breaches of contract that invades a legally protected right. Contracts. These are, we've already talked about this a little bit, but if you are in a contract and you fail to honor a promise, that can go to court and they can enforce that, and we can help you there. State statutes can be anywhere from minimum premiums to minimum coverages to whatever the case might be. There are 4 main coverages within your commercial general liability. The coverage A is bodily injury and property damage. Bodily injury and property damage is exactly how it sounds. It protects you from third parties that you may cause, that you would be found negligent for bodily injury or property damage to their either person or property. Very, very common one for businesses and smaller businesses is customers coming onto your premises and slipping and falling, and they're inside the premise or outside the premise, and they trip and fall, and they have a sprained ankle, a broken leg, whatever the case might be. That is where you find protection for that, is within the bodily injury portion of this coverage, and it is extremely important. We can rebuild buildings sometimes, and depending on financial situations, but when you get that lawsuit in the mail and you need to let me know so we can get you an attorney to defend you, this is when you're really going to appreciate your commercial general liability coverage. Coverage B is personal and advertising injury. This is your easiest way to think of this is your libel, slander, things like that, issues where it's outside of the bodily injury claims. Medical payments, coverage C, Medical payments is what I like to call good guy coverage within your insurance policy. Essentially, usually that coverage is anywhere from $1,000 to $25,000. I'll show you some limits here in a minute. But this coverage is paid without regards to negligence. And so what happens is you can have that person come on and slip and fall, or you can have something where, they're hurt, but they're really not hurt that bad. And so you call an ambulance, and, they take them over to the clinic or the emergency room and wrap up their ankle, and everything's okay. And you're just going to say, you know what, we're going to pay your medical payments. And, we're going to be a good guy, just don't sue us. And so that's why this payment is kind of in there, and it protects you in those situations where there's no you're not negligent, but you want to take care of them so it doesn't go to a larger situation, and that's kind of what that medical payments does. The supplementary payments coverage D these are minor enhancements to the policy, that they may pay money for missing work, expenses during trials, expert witnesses, court costs, things like that, little things that the insurance company will come in and pay to really help defend you in this type of a claim. So I'm going to move on. What are the exposures in commercial general liability? Primarily, you have a premises liability exposure. This is your premises. This is your place of business. This is anything around you. It can be a contractor. It can be the work site for the day. Whatever the case might be, but this is your premises. Your operations are actually what you do for a living. It's ongoing. Products is you manufacture a product. That product is completed and goes out into the marketplace. You still have an exposure for your liability coverage. So completed operations liability. Those are, if you want to think about a contractor that has built a home or has been a part of a home, and they have finished it and moved on, and then you get in the situation of completed operations. Personal advertising we talked about, and contracts. Let's talk a little bit about your commercial general liability limits and how that works. Your commercial liability limits of insurance you have aggregates and you have occurrences, okay? And when I'm going to go ahead and bring this up so you can see it. On your policy, you'll see that there's a general aggregate of $2 million. This is just an example. General aggregate of $2 million, product and completed operations aggregate of $2 million, personal and advertising injury, and each occurrence is at $1 million, okay? So basically what this means is, and the way I try to explain this is, an aggregate, your general aggregate limit is essentially your insurance checkbook for the year. That is all that the insurance company is going to pay on this policy for the entire period. And then the per occurrence limit is the most they're going to pay for any one claim. So if you have an occurrence limit of $1 million and you have a general aggregate of $2 million, they are never going to write a check larger than $1 million, and they're not going to pay any more than $2 million in the policy period. So look at it as your checkbook. You start the year, the policy period, with $2 million in your checking account, and as they pay claims, that number goes down. And then when the policy renews, that aggregate gets reset to $2 million. Okay, and so that's how the per occurrence and the aggregate limits work. The damage to rented premises, you see that is a separate line where you're responsible for premises that you rent and fire damage to those premises. And so if you are a tenant in a building, and especially a larger tenant in a building, I would strongly suggest that you talk to your insurance agent about that, because if you are held legally liable for the premises that you own, rent, or occupy, your coverage is a little bit more limited if you would be found negligent for causing damage to that structure. So just make sure you're watching that. Some companies will provide it at the same general liability limit that you have. Some will limit it and write a significantly lower amount. And then medical expense or medical payments, again, it's what we talked about. It's paid It's usually like, hey, here you go, take this money, pay my medical bills, and you know, let's not sue each other and let's move on. So that's your good guy coverage. Okay, so hopefully let me know if you have any questions on commercial general liability. I know we've got one question in. Brian, I don't know if I can see those or not, so you may have to read those off to me at the end so I can answer them.
I've got it noted here, so.
Okay, all right, I'm going to keep going because I've got to be done here in just a little bit, so I'm going to probably speed this up a little bit just because I want to make sure we talked about liability and property insurance. Essentially, commercial property insurance is boiled down to type of property, which is real versus personal. The real are your structures, your buildings, and your personal property is anything that you would take with you if you moved out of the structure. So that doesn't include cabinets that are permanently attached. It doesn't include any of that. It's your stuff. It's your desk, computers, product, stock on hand, that sort of thing, that if you moved and went to a new structure or a new building, that's where it's going to go with you. So the causal loss to the properties are important. You can have basic causal losses all the way up to special causal losses, and I'll show you some of the standard exclusions in a minute, and so you'll know that, and then you think about the financial consequences of the property loss. Sometimes that's one of our largest assets, and so we want to make sure that we're protecting it properly. So here's a few of the exclusions. I'll go through a handful of these. The two big ones that I get a lot of questions on, especially where we live right now with everything that's going on, is earthquake. Earthquake is normally excluded in any property insurance policy by all carriers. And you usually have to actually go out and request the coverage to be added. Depending on the type of structure and where you're located, it can be quite expensive versus in some areas it's not that expensive at all. Ordinance and law coverage. Essentially, ordinance and law coverage will protect you if you're in an older building, and there are, the one I can think of off the top of my head is like a skilled nursing facility or assisted living facility that maybe was built prior to code, making sure that they have a sprinkler system for life protection. And so the ordinance or law coverage, the insurance policy is designed to indemnify you to the way the structure was before the claim. But if the new ordinance or law coverage says that you have to have a sprinkler system in there, some unendorsed policies will not protect you and not pay those added expenses. So you just want to make sure that that you review those with your agent and make sure that they have got you protected properly. Government action, nuclear hazards, utility services, war, military action, water, flood. A lot of people don't understand that surface water coming into the structure is not covered, and you actually have to endorse that policy to get coverage for it. And flood is also not covered, and you have to buy that from the federal government in order to get protection for any flood, water flood damage that we have. Another one that can be excluded. That's one that can be quite expensive is mechanical breakdown. A good way to think of mechanical breakdown is off-premises power failure or power surges that might hit your equipment that maintains and operates your building. If you have that coverage, we can actually get that covered and taken care of for sudden and accidental losses to your equipment that for whatever reason break down. So it's an important coverage. Make sure you have it and talk to your agent. Any questions on property insurance? Please get them in the box and I'll answer them as soon as I possibly can. Real quick on commercial auto insurance. Commercial auto insurance covers the named insured and anybody that you give permission in order to drive your vehicle. It can be, on the commercial side of commercial auto insurance, your coverage can be limited by radius of operations. It's obviously a cheaper premium if you have a local radius of operations, which is usually 50 or 75 miles. However, with certain carriers, they may not allow you to go outside of that. And if you go outside of that, you can have a claim that's not covered. So just make sure that you discuss that with your agent and make sure that you do that correctly. If you are using a personally insured vehicle for your business, please confirm that you at least have business use on your vehicle. A perfect example is myself. I'm an insurance agent here in Idaho Falls. I use my personal vehicle all day long to drive around to see clients. And I have to have business use on my personal auto policy in order to protect me. If I'm involved in an accident and the company finds out I was working, doing it for business, you see contractors a lot that have personal trucks with their names all over the truck. You want to make sure you have business use on your vehicle. It doesn't cost hardly anything to do that. But your insurance company, if they really want to be difficult, can come back and say they're not going to provide that coverage for you because it's a business use. Real quick, Idaho minimum limits 25, 50, 20. What that means is that's $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident, $20,000 of property coverage, property damage. I can tell you right now that's nowhere near enough. Don't buy it, don't get it, and if you have it, go get more. Purchase at least $1 million. It does not cost double or triple to get up to that million limit, and I'm sorry, just $1 million is not enough anymore. I'm seeing larger and larger claims. I've had a very large claim in Montana over this last year, and you need to get those higher limits to protect your business. Another way to do that is through an umbrella excess policy. Really quickly, an umbrella policy increases your liability limits over your existing general liability, your auto, or your employer's liability of your workers' compensation policies. It can drop down and actually protect you if your aggregate is exhausted. And there are times in certain examples where the umbrella policy may be a little broader than your underlying GL policy, and you might be able to get a little bit more coverage out of it. I would strongly suggest you have someone give you an umbrella quote. I can tell you that depending on the company, depending on what you do, it can be anywhere from $500 to $750 per $1 million layer. And I can tell you that, you know, if you're involved in a bad enough accident, which can happen in an instant, you know, if you have that couple of extra $1 million laying there and you spend $1,000 to do it, you're going to be very thankful, because once those insurance limits are exhausted, they're coming back to you for payment. And so consider these umbrella policies. They can be a lifesaver and a business saver as well. Real quick, package policies. All these are, oops, let me go back. Sorry. Package policies, they're just everything kind of wrapped up into one. And so you can get all of it together and buy it all at one policy, one premium. BOP policies are called business owners policies, and those are really your Main Street businesses, apartments, condos, convenience stores, you know, grocery stores, offices, that sort of thing. Those are every insurance company out there writes them. Every insurance company out there has little enhancements to it. I call it frosting, that makes it look a little better. But make sure there is price advantage to doing that and coverage advantage to doing that. So if you can get on a package or a BOP, do that. Workers' compensation, mandatory. If you have employees, you got to have it. You know, it covers occupational injuries or diseases, and you know, owners have the options to exclude themselves, which can save money. But if you have employees, you got to have it, and you're going to get a massive fine daily if you don't have it from the Idaho Industrial Commission. And believe me, they will find you rather quickly. I get phone calls all the time from the Idaho Industrial Commission folks right here in Idaho Falls wanting proof of coverage for entities that they have found that are in business, that have employees that they do not see active workers' compensation policies for, because your insurance companies are required by law to electronically notify the Industrial Commission when they have policies in force. And so they find you very quickly if you don't have a policy in force. So you can have an impact on your workers' compensation policy. Essentially, the best way to keep your costs low is your EMOD. That is your loss history. You want to try to keep your claims as low as possible, but you have to take care of your employees. So the way you do that is you have safety meetings, you have safety plans, because all of us really want our employees to come to work for us, do a great job, and then we want them to go home to their families safe and secure. And so we want to have safety plans, and probably the best way is have a drug-free workplace. And if you have a drug-free workplace program, the majority of your insurance carriers will automatically give you a 5% credit for just having a drug-free workplace program set up. And if you don't have a drug-free workplace program set up, let me know, because we have one for you that we can get to you at no cost to you, and then it's going to save you 5% as well. And so we can help get that set up and get it approved by the state fund or whoever your insurance company is. And it's better for your employees, better for you, and it's just a good situation for all. I'm going to go ahead and skip this and get right in because I'm running a little bit out of time. Professional liability. There are times in the world that I live in, especially as an insurance agent, I have to have professional liability because I'm considered an expert in my field. And so if I mess up and I don't do something, then that is where my professional liability exposure comes in. Think about a doctor, think about a pharmacist, think about an architect or an engineer, those type of things where, you know, if you mess up and you don't really, you cause financial, not bodily injury or property damage, but you cause a financial issue, you've got to have a professional liability policy to protect you, because the general liability just will not respond. So anyway, I'm going to move on from that. Cyber liability. Cyber liability is probably the scariest thing that we have going on right now in the industry, only because, and you can think about it this way, something recent is the Democratic National Committee just got their emails hacked. It's happening everywhere. It doesn't matter how big, how small you are. I know a lot of physician offices are going to what they call EMRs, and if you don't know what that is, that's an electronic medical record. So when you go to the doctor today and you sit in there and they talk to you and they have iPads or laptops and things like that, and they're typing into them as you have discussions, they have electronic records, and you have to make sure that those systems are tied down, secured. And what I always say to my clients is, I ask them how they feel their cyber is and their internet, how secure their records are, and they're like, oh, it's good. My computer guy says we're good. And I said, okay, well, he signed this letter saying that if anything happens, he's liable for it, and they won't. And it's nothing against them. It's just there's so many issues that can come up. And so you can actually go out and buy you a cyber liability policy, and what it does is it really protects you from those type of exposures and those attacks. And the biggest issue here for cyber is actually the cost in notifying the people affected. We had a claim a handful of years ago that somebody stole a server, and it had employee information on it for 10 or 12 years. It was encrypted, and we think they stole the server just to sell it for $100. But we had to go through an extensive amount of letters and documentation and going through the proper steps in order to notify these people of what happened. That it was a huge cost, and thank goodness we had coverage for it. But it could be $20,000-$25,000 of postage and letters and mails and doing the proper notifications. And so we don't think about it, but you can add this coverage for little to no money, and it's very, very important to have that coverage in today's world. So this is just a real quick breakdown. You'll see that hackers and rogue employees kind of lead the way. And I've had situations where somebody had a company laptop in the car, and they were traveling for business, and the company laptop got stolen, and it had everyone's payroll records on it, or whatever the case might be. So they had access to Social Security numbers and items like that. So here's just a really quick breakdown. This is Travelers Insurance Company, if you've heard of them, where they actually have insuring agreements, kind of a claim scenario, and how did the coverage respond. Since this is recorded, I'm going to kind of go through that quickly. I won't waste time on that, just because I want to make sure that we get through all of the slides. But there's just funds transfer fraud, e-commerce, extortion. Probably the biggest one is network and information security liability, and communications and media liability, because that's really where they're coming in and attacking your records. What can you do? You can get your tech people in, tighten things down, check your people, go to the FTC's website, and you can purchase cyber coverage. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up. What questions do you have for me? And Brian, if you want to hit me with any that they have, if we have some, then I'll try to do what I can.
One of our tenants here at the Idaho Innovation Center, Robert Brady, has an online advertising agency. He manages advertising campaigns for companies. His question is, what kind of coverage should he have? Should he be looking at, and for how much? He does work all over the country for small to large companies.
Okay, I would suggest to Robert that he take a look at. He's going to need general liability coverage, which is going to be fairly cheap because if you think about it, he really doesn't have a premises exposure. It's going to be, everything he's doing sounds like it's online, and so he doesn't really have a lot of foot traffic. And so where his exposure lies is on the professional side, where he needs professional exposure for the advertising portion, and then also cyber policy to protect his databases and things. And most of your carriers out there actually have programs designed for online advertising, and you can get it all wrapped up into one little package, and it's fairly economical. So. Okay.
Very good. Hopefully, Robert, that answered you. If not, let me know and I can get you in touch with Marvin. Question I have a vehicle that's on my personal, but I do use it for business, but I also let my employees at times drive that, drive it at times. Am I responsible for notifying my insurance company every time that they're going to drive it, or is it just automatically covered if I give my truck to someone and they wreck it, or is it covered and things like that?
Okay, on your truck, you need to make sure you have business use on your personal auto policy first off. But yes, anyone that you give permission to drive your personal vehicle is covered but it's under your personal auto policy. It follows the vehicle. Okay, and then as a business, as a business, what you need is non-owned auto coverage. And most of your insurance agents will include this, but you want to make sure you do that. And what it does is that is a perfect example, Brian, is you are using your personal vehicle for business. Then we have a business that we're protecting. So if Brian is involved in an accident where he's going down to, Office Max to get paper or whatever the case might be, running a business errand in his personal vehicle, and he's involved in an accident, an attorney will find out that he was doing that errand for business. So he will sue Brian on his personal auto policy, but he will also come back and sue the company because the reason why he was there was because he was doing work on behalf of the company. And so you have to have non-owned auto coverage on your policy, and so what will happen is that will come in excess over Brian's limits. So Brian's personal auto liability policy will be primary, and once those limits are exhausted, they can then come to the business policy and come after the business as well. So if you have employees or using vehicles in the business that you do not that the company does not own, you need that non-owned auto coverage.
Okay. Now, if, for example, I've got quite a few, I'm going to have a booth at the state fair this year, and they're going to be driving their own vehicles there. And so is there anything that I need to note? I mean, if they get in an accident on the way to like the state fair?
No, their personal auto liability coverage will be primary.
Well, okay.
And as long as we have the non-owned auto coverage, then, the business would be protected as well.
Okay. Good. Well, we appreciate your preparation. Excellent presentation. We are so fortunate to have experts like you in this area that can do this. So we will get this meeting wrapped up, and we'll get it on there. So all the people that have texted me to make sure we get it on there today will be able to get it. So
okay.
Great job, Marvin. Thank you, everybody. Is there any other quick questions out there that anybody else has? Awesome. Thank you so much, Marvin, and everybody have a great weekend.
Okay. Have a great day.
You too.